This week marks the one-year anniversary of the Civil War. First action of this week on the 11th at Fort Pulaski in between Georgia and South Carolina. At 2:30, the fort surrenders to the Union. This was after the commencement of a 30-hour artillery bombardment. In this endeavor, the Union lost one man dead. The Confederates suffered 12 mortally wounded. The remaining 383 surrendered. From here, the Union can open up into Savannah, which the fort protected, and seize the major supply lines of the Confederacy. They can do damage to both the western theater of the war, which has had Albert Sidney Johnston dead, and now full leader P.G. Beauregard on the back foot, and hurt the supply line of the Army of Northern Virginia, all the way up at Yorktown. From here, the Union can really destroy the back of the Confederacy. Also on the 11th, the House of Representatives approves the Senate bill ending slavery in the District of Columbia. The Democrats tried to delay the bill, but were voted down in the end. 98 yeas, 38 nays. The bill goes to Lincoln. And Lincoln is most likely going to sign it. But on the 12th, hijinks. 23 men from the 3rd Ohio Regiment and one civilian have a brilliant idea. Railroads are very important in this war. But if we captured a train and use it to destroy Confederate rail infrastructure, we can bring them to their knees. We will stop anyone trying to follow us by rail and cripple the enemy's supply lines. Where to start, though? What about Big Shanty, one says. My memory's correct. It doesn't have telegraph lines. Brilliant! These raiders arm themselves with some revolvers. They need something to destroy rails. What about a crowbar? That should be enough. At 5 a.m., they board the General, a steam locomotive, and at 6, the train stops at Big Shanty for breakfast. These trains don't actually have any cars for food, so they must stop and eat at every stop. The Ohio men, led by civilian James Andrews, leap into action. They remove a majority of the cars, leaving only the General itself and 3 boxcars. At 6:30, someone yells, "Someone is running off with your train!" The General's conductor, Fuller, realizes what is going on, and with 2 other men hop on a handcar and pursue the raiders. The General can go on average 15 miles per hour, but of course it stops to destroy infrastructure, and it can't go ahead of schedule, or it will crash into another train. At Etowah, Andrew spots a quicker train, the Yonah, but it's guarded, and he can't risk time fighting over it. Fuller, in close pursuit, reaches Etowah, commandeers the Yonah, and continues his chase. Andrews has been moving actually pretty quickly through stations, claiming to be urgently delivering ammunition to Confederate armies. He has worked well in places without telegraphs. But at Kingston, he is delayed. 1 hour. The Ohio men and Andrews are trying not to act suspicious. And finally, they get the go-ahead. Just as they start to pull out of the station, Andrews spots something. The Yonah. At Kingston, ditches the Yonah for a new train and continues the pursuit. 2 miles north of Kingston, the General stops. Some men get out, they cut a telegraph wire, destroy some tracks, hop back on board, and continue north to Addersville. Fuhrer is getting close and, "Stop the train!" He reaches the broken tracks. Damn it! He hops off the train and starts running after the General on foot. Then his 2 men soon see the Texas, another locomotive. The Texas spotted the General, actually, moved off the tracks to allow this crazy train forward. Fuhrer takes command of the Texas and moves it in reverse. Seriously, it's going Colbin in front after the General. At a stop, Fuhrer is able to pick up 11 Confederate soldiers. He is getting ground on the General, and Andrews can't even stop to destroy tracks because of how much time it takes. Well, what about burning bridges? He should have enough time for that. But rain has wetted the wood, and the fire won't spread. Hop back on the train. Okay, what about collapsing a tunnel? Once again, they fail. They can cut telegraph wires, and right as they stop to go do so, so does Fuhrer. He must send word to Chattanooga to tell them to stop the general. Both race to get their work done. Fuhrer sends off his telegraph, and Andrew cuts the line. Fuhrer was successful, though. Andrew hops back on, and they move off. But the general is really running low on fuel. 18 miles from Chattanooga, they run out. Andrew and his men scatter to the wind. But the story doesn't end there. All are captured. Some of the Union men, specifically the Ohio regiments, worried about being hung as spies, so they escape. In 4 pairs, they move out, narrated by slaves and Unionists. One group of 2 hops on a makeshift raft and float all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, where they are picked up by Union steamer. The rest go by land and safely make it back to Union lines. 6 are exchanged back to the Union on the 17th. The remainder are hung. That was the Great Locomotive Chase. Also on the 12th, full General Joseph E. Johnston arrives at Yorktown with the complete army of Northern Virginia. The Confederates now number over 72,000, though Johnston isn't that happy with the position. The siege at Yorktown has had very little action. On the 11th, both the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia from Hampton Roads try to bait each other, but nothing happens. Major General McClellan does not wish to take any risk here. On the 14th, Union mortar boats aboard Fort Palo. You probably don't need to know about that fort. They're actually unable to do anything against the structure. Same day, a follow-up on Glorieta Pass. Colonel Canby of the Union is pursuing the Confederates. He's right on the heels of the Confederate supply train. He sends out Major Shivington with cavalry to loot and burn what remains of the Confederate supplies. The Confederate commander warns of this and dispatches 2 regiments of Texas Mounted Rifles to stop Shivington. But before he can do that, Shivington reaches the supplies and destroys them. The Confederates are now even less with supplies. And the last thing on the 14th, General Johnston is in Richmond, debating what to do with 2 of his subordinates, General Robert.E.Lee and Secretary of War George Randolph, and his superior, President Davis. Johnston wants to pull back and consolidate at Richmond, but doing so would result in the port of Norfolk being taken and losing the CSS Virginia. Others suggest moving towards D.C. and have Lincoln recall McClellan. That's too risky. They can't gather troops from the coast, or the Union could take important port towns from Georgia to North Carolina, i.e. Savannah. The early hours of the next day is decided to make McClellan fight tooth and nail for Yorktown in every inch of the Virginia Peninsula. On the 15th, the Battle of Piacho Pass between 13 California cavalry and 10 Confederate cavalry. This is part of the California Column, movement of Californian Union soldiers into Texas. 2 sides engage against each other, and the Confederates forced the Union back. The Union suffered 3 killed and 3 wounded. Confederates 3 captured and some wounded or killed. We don't know actually for certain. The Union wins strategically though. The Confederates' loss at Glorieta Pass, along with the capture of Confederates here, caused the entire Confederate body to withdraw and regroup, giving room for the column to continue its advance. On the 16th, Yorktown springs to life. After doing reconnaissance, probably by a hot air balloon provided by Professor Lowe of the Union Army Balloon Corps, McClellan decides to act. He orders a 4th Corps division under Brigadier General Robert.E.Lee Smith to take a dam. None of early action has taken place. No major artillery barrage, nothing to really soften up the defenses. Smith will have to do it himself. He orders forward artillery protected by the 2nd Brigade of entirely Vermont men. They open fire on the Confederate battle-works and fire from long range with their rifles, hoping to soften the enemy positions. The Confederates actually take shelter here, and a brave Vermont man realizes something. These earthworks can be easily taken. The veteran 3rd Vermont moves forward, cross a small river in fact, move up on the earthworks. The Confederates scatter. Union men fire after them, driving them away. And very easily, they have now seized the Confederate positions. What now? The fact is, no one thought they would get this far. Division Commander Smith has been wounded. By his horse, actually, was just thrown off, and can't do anything. McClellan has had enough fighting for the day. The Confederates have not. They order a brigade forward against the single Vermont regiment, and after 45 minutes, the 3rd Vermont are pushed back. The leader of the Vermont brigade tries to assault the position again, But after 165 casualties, he decides the day is over. This was the minor battle of Dam Number 1. McClellan decides now to starve and bombard Yorktown into submission. The very same day, the Confederate Congress passes a Conscription Act. It does so by an easy margin, in both the House and Senate, but is severely criticized by both those within and outside the Confederate Congress. They argue that this infringes on their rights. It's unconstitutional. James McPherson calls these arguments Jeffersonian, which are responded to by Federalist pragmatism by President Davis. It now goes to Secretary of War Randolph, who will assign quotas to each of the breakaway states to fill up the Confederate ranks. The last thing on the 16th, President Abraham Lincoln signs an act for the release of certain persons, black slaves, held to service or labor within the District of Columbia. President Lincoln introduced a similar bill when he was an Illinois representative in Congress. Lincoln wanted provisions in the act, like a referendum in D.C. before anything was done, and a delay, but neither were included. All 3,185 slaves in D.C. are freed. Each slave owner is compensated $300 for each slave they used to own. And to any free former slave is a $100 bribe to leave for Haiti or Liberia or anyone that would take them. This has only compensated emancipation in the U.S. so far, seen as a political victory for Republicans and Lincoln. On the 17th, General Johnston starts further strengthening his position at Yorktown. McClellan waits for his artillery to be further set up. And actually, let's talk about McClellan's guns. He has 2 200-pounders, 12 100-pounders, 41 mortars, along with a multitude of 20 and 30-pounders, 4.5 siege rifles, and a flotilla of naval ships. If all fired in unison, 7,000 pounds of death would fall onto Yorktown. These guns are so heavy, the Union Army must double as a construction service to make roads and setups so they can actually use these heavy guns. The last thing on the 17th, word from Brigadier General Ambrose Burnside about Fort Mackin. I hope to reduce the fort within 10 days. Then there is Sickles. He's running out of context, really. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton is too busy, along with President Lincoln. New York Senators Ira Harris and Preston King don't have enough clout to change any of their colleagues' minds. He needs someone else. Someone the Senate would have to listen to. But who? That's where the week ends, and I'm going to go off script. It's been 1 year since this war started. I told you the names of battles you can't remember the name of. There's just too many of them. Names of regiments that lost tens, hundreds of men, and you can't remember the name of them. There's just too many of them. Told you the names of leaders, culturally, politically, religiously, and their losses, and there's just too many of them to remember. 1 year later, there's a scar on America. A scar that might never go away. The loss of life for what? The answer is we don't know yet. This war could go on for years now. We don't know what each person died for. For a breakaway nation that will continue on to save the Union. But I can tell you what has happened. Dozens of people have lost their lives, yes, for seemingly no major gain. But this war has changed America. People who were kept in bondage are now free. This week we saw Battle of Fort Pulaski, Piazza Pass, actions of the upper column, Yorktown, but we also saw the emancipation of 3,185 Americans. This war scars will remain on America forever. But the hope and the ideals of freedom that are being extended more and more to more and more Americans, the shining light that will see us through this dark war, continues to burn as bright as ever. And the flames of liberty and justice for all will burn down any fence in between us and the complete liberty and equality that all men deserve. Thank you. Hi, it's the entire Civil War Week by Week team here. And yes, that is a very weird catchphrase. If you liked the video, please like it. If you would like to see more, you should also be seeing a playlist around here anytime. If you want to see what happens next week, please hit the subscribe button. And if you hate the channel, then you're a dirty rebel, and I will have to send Lincoln after you.